Hey guys, Stampede 19 here. I've been asked to explain a little more in depth the difference between a slipper clutch and a differential. For this demonstration, we're going to be talking about Traxxas's slipper clutch. I have one right here. This is the slipper clutch for the Slash 4x4. It's a Revo spec clutch. And we're going to be talking about the differential or the Center Diff inside the Traxxas Slash 4x4. Before we get started on the details of the Slash 4x4's differential and the Slash 4x4's slipper clutch, you need to understand what a differential is and does. A differential is basically a gearbox. Okay, you've got gears, 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 gears. Okay, and they're driven. That's your shaft that drives the differential, which drives the gears to the out drives here and here, which drives the wheels. Okay, power is applied. This spins. The gears spin. Okay, and they turn the wheels. Great. Now, the purpose of a differential, the basics. A differential is nothing more than allowing the inner wheel, the wheel that's on the turn. For this demonstration, we're turning to the right. Okay? So the wheels have to turn. Now, what the purpose of a differential is, the outside wheel, or the rear in this case, has to travel a farther distance than the inside wheel to make the turn. The differential compensates for that and allows the wheel to spin faster. Okay? This guy has to cover less distance, so this wheel has to spin at a constant speed. This wheel has to spin faster to keep up because it has to travel a further distance. That's the basic principle behind a differential, a rear diff or a front diff. Okay, it's basically distributing power to allow the wheel to spin. Now, let's take this out of the way a sec. A slipper clutch, there are no gears. It's faster to draw this than to take it apart. Basically, you've got your pinion gear, you've got your spur gear, which is attached to the clutch. Okay? You have a drive shaft built into it. There's a bearing in there. Okay? If you look. Okay. On the shaft, you have a spring and a nut. Okay. Now I'm going to start exploding the view now. It has a backing plate or a friction disc, almost like a disc brake. Okay. Then it has a front plate. Okay. And friction pads are attached to it. Those friction pads make contact with the disc. They're all attached to the shaft. Okay. This spring on the slipper clutch applies how much tension is applied to the discs and how hard they'll make contact with that friction plate. Now, slipper clutches were important for two-wheel drive, were very critical for two-wheel drive vehicles. You have the friction type, and then they have ball differentials. Same principle, the balls will spin, and how tight you set it or how loose you set it will develop your traction. Okay? Now, on very loose tracks that are very loose, okay, I'm going to use my Terra buggy. Tracks that are very loose, the wheels are going to kick up all that dirt and they're going to lose traction. If you apply too much power, the wheels are just going to dig a hole, throw up dirt, and you're not going to go anywhere because it's a loose track. Okay? With a slipper clutch, you can set the slipper clutch a little loose. Okay? And as you apply power, the shaft is going to spin, the pads are going to be loose, so it's going to turn. So although the power is still being applied to the wheels, okay, the power is being applied to the slipper clutch itself, the clutch is spinning instead of the wheels spinning, so the car's not out of control and wiggling back and forth trying to gain traction. Now this is happening in like a blink of an eye. The pads will start to heat up with the disc, and as they heat up, they will begin to grab. As it heats up and grabs, the truck begins to gain traction, and you pull away. Now remember, it's hard to, it's a difficult thing. You got to know the track, you got to feel it. It's more of a feel as you're driving. You'll feel how the car is breaking loose, grabbing traction. Now if it's a, you know, if it's a track where you're getting a lot of traction, okay, you want a little tighter clutch. Okay? Understand, my whole conversation here is about racing. Alright? The slipper clutch provides another important benefit in protecting the driveline for bashers. For instance, we're going to jump the truck. The right way to jump a truck is you hit your ramp or you hit your jump, and as the truck goes in the air, you're using throttle to either bring the nose up, okay, or you're using brake to drop the nose down. So you basically, by blipping your radio, you can control the angle, the attitude of the vehicle as it's flying through the air. Some people can make the mistake of being too hard on the throttle when the vehicle comes down and lands. If the vehicle comes down and lands while on throttle and it gets an instant hit of traction, okay, you're stressing the driveline. You're putting too much torque and force into the driveline, and you can damage things. With a slipper clutch, because there isn't a physical connection between the driveline and the power being applied to the spur, okay, the clutch will slip a little bit, okay, when a sudden hit to the driveline, and that'll take a little stress off the driveline. That's the other positive thing about slipper clutches with bashing. But we're going to stick to racing right now. So now I've explained that you can adjust the clutch based upon track conditions, and that's how you can dial in traction. But understand, with the slipper clutch, you're just driving 100% of the power through it. Okay, so it all depends on how hard you pull the radio. Now, here comes the differential, or in this case, for our demonstration, the center differential. Okay? The center differential plays an important part. Okay, on a Slash 4x4, you have a differential in the rear. You have a differential up front. Okay? And you have, instead of the slipper clutch, okay, we have a center differential. Now with the Slash 4x4 and any other vehicle with a center differential, what that does is, remember what I told you about differentials, how they allow one wheel for a rear diff or a front diff during a turn for one to spin faster than the other. Well, the same principle applies with a center diff. Okay, remember on this system here, it's the Valenion. It's driving your spur. Okay, power is being applied. 100% power is being applied to the center diff. Depending upon what wheels have traction and grabbing, the center diff can distribute the power to the wheels that are grabbing. Okay, you get more traction with a center diff. You get more control over how the car handles. Whereas a slipper clutch, it's a little harder to dial in. Again, slipper clutches were more for rear-wheel drive vehicles. Traxxas decided to put one in the four-wheel drive, but you're really distributing 100% of the power equally to the front and rear. There's no tuning. You know, when you're dialing out or dialing in the clutch based on track conditions, you're doing it for front and rear. Whereas with the center differential, changing the viscosity of the fluids gets to be a pain. Personally, how I handle certain tracks, I know what, you know, one track I know I need to use 10,000 weight. Another track I need to use 25,000 weight. Okay? Alright, so in my case, for my Slash, I have four, actually. I have four separate differentials with four different viscosities of fluid in them, so I don't have to keep changing it out. I just drop in the differential that I think is going to work well with that track on that day. It's really that simple. That's really the only difference. The difference is with a center differential, it will distribute power to the wheels that are grabbing. Another good way to have you understand on how differentials handle if you notice, you'll take a car with a differential, in this case the Terra Buggy. Okay, take the Terra Buggy for instance. I can, because there's a differential driving the front wheels, I can grab this wheel, yet I can still turn this one. Okay, I mean, that's like the simplest way I can explain this, how differentials benefit. This wheel has no traction. It ain't grabbing, it ain't doing nothing. It got jammed up or whatever, but the truck can still drive. Okay? That's another positive side to the center differential, in that if the rears aren't grabbing, the fronts will. If the fronts aren't grabbing, the rears will. And the differential will be able to distribute power equally and evenly. Where on a slipper clutch, it's going to drive all four wheels the same exact way based upon how the clutch is set, and that's it. You know, it's just a direct power, where a differential distributes it where it's needed and allows one wheel to spin faster than the other, just like the purpose of a differential. I wanted to do this a little better on the vehicle and show you a driving video. I didn't have the time to do it, and I thought I needed to get it out there. So post a comment if you need more clarification, and I'll see what I can do to make whatever you missed a little clearer. There are some pretty awesome videos out there. Old ones, as a matter of fact, pretty old, about the Dana 60 and just simple principles of differentials. I highly recommend them. They're on YouTube. Just search on YouTube, how does a differential work? and it'll be very clear when you see how a differential distributes power to one side versus the other, depending on which one has the traction. So by adding a center one, that benefit, that feature of a differential is now dispersed front to rear. Okay? Again, any questions, comments, post below, and I'll see what I can do. Hope you're having a good day, guys. Talk to you soon.